What are the key elements that the Lord has shown you?
Well, there's a number of scriptures God is highlighting for this year, but one of the ones that I had a vision about actually is out of 2 Timothy chapter 3, and I actually had a vision of the chapter 2 Timothy 3, and there was a magnifying glass over it, and then the sun was shining through the magnifying glass, and so there was light on it, and every single verse was bolded. And
Wow.
so when I was studying 2 Timothy 3, it is titled Difficult Times Will Come. I mean, that doesn't sound like great news, but I mean, it was difficult times will come. And it says, realize this, that in the last days, evil times, difficult times will come. Men will be lovers of self, narcissistic. It's one of the highlighted things that we see in society today. Lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, on and on and on. And the whole chapter is really worth studying out. I'm not going to go into the whole chapter because there's a lot I'd like to share today if I have time. But there was a spotlight on it. And I felt the Lord say, do not be afraid of challenging times. The challenging times will build your faith and they'll bring you into a place of knowing me more. And when we read the Bible, there's very little said about times of peace. You might say like King so-and-so reigned for 17 years and there was peace, period. Nothing more written about him. But most of the Bible was written in challenging times. You think of Noah, even in Moses, let's say, and Daniel and Elijah, Joseph and Jeremiah, and even in the New Testament, we look at the transition with John the Baptist, Jesus, and the early church. None of those stories were written in times of peace. They were written in challenging times, which will give us an indicator is that God does his most significant. Yeah, so in challenging times, we need to be willing to say, here I am, Lord, send me. Use me in this hour. So we position ourselves and say, Lord, it's really going to count. It's really going to matter that I take my position right now and to be fully yielded. And one of the things in regards to this season that God's showing me as far as preparation is we have to get back to being filled with the Holy Spirit. And, a lot of times because we've been in such a abundant season, there was so much revelation, so much training, so much knowledge. We learned to do the stuff, the Holy Spirit taught us to do things, and we learned how to do the stuff. And it's very easy to lean on what you know, and even by faith, exercise what you know, but not be really drawn to or close to the person of the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit was showing me that in past revivals, that there would be just this contending and people at the altars, even for hours, for breakthrough. And they called it tarrying back in the early Pentecostal days, that they would tarry at the altar until they had their breakthrough. And I felt that there's going to be a new level of tarrying where we get a hold of the Holy Spirit. And even Jesus, when Jesus left, he did not leave the church with a scroll that said, this is how you plant churches. This is how you build your nonprofit organization. This is how you set up your board of directors. This is how you put your programs together. He didn't even say, this is how you're going to overcome political systems, or this is how you're going to, invade the mountains, even though I really believe in that. As the Holy Spirit leads us. But he didn't say that. He gave them a posture. He said, you go and tarry in Jerusalem. And they knew what tarrying was all about. They'd been with Jesus. They had seen him tarry. And so they went and they prayed nonstop and continuously until the promise of the Father came, which was the Holy Spirit. And then it says they were all filled with the Holy Spirit. And as a result of being yielded to the Holy Spirit and filled with the Holy Spirit, thousands were added to the church in that very day, which is what we're going to see. We will see a great harvest, but it's going to take some positioning back, seeking him, not seeking, okay, what is this prophet saying or that prophet saying, even though that is good. But you have to take that word to the Lord yourself. You have to go to him yourself and say, okay, Lord, register that in my heart. Show me what's right. Because right now, there are so many prophetic voices. And I'm sure for the most part, that all the words that are being brought that seem contrary to each other have a piece in the puzzle. I mean, obviously, there's going to have to be some tweaking, and there's going to have to be some refining in the prophetic movement right now. But basically, everyone's carrying this little piece. And what's going to give us the whole picture is when we go before the Lord and get our own personal marching orders. So I believe this is going to be extremely important in this era, that we stop thinking out of our mind and moving out of what we know to do, what we're gifted to do even, and come into fresh relationship with the Holy Spirit himself, and also Jesus. There's going to be a Jesus focus. It's not just going to be a focus on, the teachings that he gave or whatever. It'll be the person of Jesus. People are going to be drawn to and desperate for. We're going to have a new desperation.
That is so good, Patricia. And I think, they've been calling this year the Great Reset, but it's actually a time for individuals to reset their heart before the Lord, to go before the Lord. If we can get so busy with ministry, with family, with daily, with pleasures, and it's time to go before the Lord and get our own hearts reset. That is excellent. And this is not just for a few. This is for every single believer. Get back to Jesus.